Yes. She said, she's a whole different person. Absolutely. Sure makes a difference for nothing more paying for her. Okay. I'm going to tell y'all a story.
Yay!
I texted Weta this afternoon, made sure that we were having class because I was gone last week, so I just wanted to make sure everything was, and she goes, well, I'm going to be there. And I said, okay, if you're there, I'm going to be there. So she called me at 5:30, and she said, Anita, Eulogene, I am sick. Eulogene's going to bring you the notes, and you start at such and such, and I'm sick, and I'm going to go home and go to bed. And I said, okay. Okay, she didn't ask. She just said, do it. Well, I cannot figure out her notes. There's just lots of papers kind of stuck in here. I'm sure she just didn't feel good. So you know she must have been feeling bad if she's not. So, of course, Jim gave me some great advice. Nita, it's just going to be like 42. It's a forced bid. So I don't want to look at it that I'm forcing myself on you and that you're going to get a, yeah, I'm trying to not sound like an idiot tonight. Let's just put it that way. So I thought y'all were finished, but then she said, no, we didn't have class last week because there was a storm here. So,
Oh, that's right.
so I really wasn't ready. I went over the questions and she said, I'll do the questions next week. So that was the only thing that I had reviewed. So I apologize if I'm stumbling over myself, but we'll just, we'll get through.
You'll be just fine.
Well, good. All right. Well, I'm not even going to look at her book because I can't understand. What I had when we were here the last time is, and that's what I think Joy had on hers, number 4. Was it number 4 on page 62? Do y'all have that marked? Okay. Well, then we're going to all start this way. And I might have figured out if I had a little bit more time, but I found one. So we're going to start here. All right. Before we start, Joy, would you just say a prayer for us, please?
Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this time that we have to come together and study your word. May we apply the things that we learn here to our lives and be better people because of that. Thank you for all of the many blessings that you give us. There are several suffering right now, and we ask prayers on their behalf. May you comfort them. In Jesus' name, amen.
When Jim asked me what what we were going to study, I said, well, how do we look to God? And he said, well, what does that mean? And I said, it's how we look to God. And that's basically, you can't get it any easier. We started out with, it would be a portrait of the heart, the inner being. That heart will spend eternity somewhere out of this world. So we're talking about how we're going to examine ourselves. We're talking about what people look at. The Lord looketh on the heart. That's how we started. Can God point to us with pride? Which that was I had a little asterisk there. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God. You know, I think that's a big thing when you're out in the world. You know, we don't want God to be ashamed of us because of things that we have done or said. You know, within the church or within the world, anywhere. We don't want him to be ashamed of us. And that's why we do what we do. That's why we come to this class. That's why we come on Wednesdays and Sundays, to make ourselves better. And that's why we have our daily Bible readings, is to make us that we're not going to be ashamed, or God won't be ashamed of us. Then we came back over here. We talked about, David said, search me, O God, and know my heart. It's real easy to come anywhere and make it look good. But is our heart right? Is our heart right with God? And that's another thing that we're studying in this particular book. So we came back over, and we're going to start then. Does God see love in the heart? And Jenny, would you mind reading that very first, or the first two paragraphs? And I'll do what Weta does. We'll get a couple of people to. Joy, would you read 1 Corinthians 13:5? And Karen, how about 2 Timothy 3:5? And Mandy, could you have John 17:17 ready? And we'll have them ready to read when you get to that point. Okay, go ahead.
Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. This furnishes the basis for all spiritual growth. Because if we love God, we will keep his commandments. Everybody does love something with all his heart. It may be self or worldly pleasures. If so, love for God does not dwell in the heart, for love seeketh not its own.
Okay, would you read 1 Corinthians 13:5?
Does not behave rudely, is that okay?
Yeah.
Does not behave brutally, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil.
Okay.
But some are lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God.
Karen, do you have 2 Timothy 3:5?
35.
35?
I do. 3-5. Is it the third chapter?
It's chapter 3, verse 5.
Okay. For if a man knows not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God?
Okay, was that 2 Timothy or 1 Timothy? It's okay.
Is it Timothy 3?
3:5.
Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. Is that it?
Okay. All right, Jenny?
Does God see love for the truth? What is truth? Thy word is truth.
That's a pretty easy one. Mandy?
Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth.
Okay.
Searching for truth is merely searching to know God's will on everything. Therefore, one who does not love truth has no hope of eternal life. Teach me the truth, Lord, though my heart may break, in casting out the falsehood for the truth. Help me to take my shattered life and make its actions new. Teach me the truth, Lord, when false creeds decay, when man-made dogmas vanish into the night. And Lord, on thee my darkened soul shall stay, thou living light.
Okay. All right. Well, just quickly, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart. We've heard that forever. JD, what does that mean?
If you're loving him with all your heart, you're gonna put all of your focus into serving him, to serving his kingdom, to follow his commandments, and put him first.
That's exactly right. And that's what we've been talking about on Wednesday night in Eric's class. You know, what is selfishness? What is, it's we have to put him first, and he is our priority. And then seeking and loving the truth. So what would loving the truth be? Brenda, how do you love the truth enough to?
Well, you have to know it first.
Right. Exactly.
And then apply it.
Exactly. It's easy. We have to remember that God, that the devil he knows the scriptures, doesn't he? So when Jesus went and was tempted in the mountain, I mean, Satan knew those scriptures, but Jesus knew them better, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to be able to fight Satan. We've got to be able to fight this world and the worldly powers that he has with the truth, not necessarily a nice book, not this one, but those self-help books. They're self-help books. They're not the Bible, and we have to make sure that we have the truth from the Bible. And I think that's so important, especially nowadays, because people that we thought knew the truth, preached the truth, loved the truth, are now somewhere else talking about they just didn't love. They didn't give me any grace. They just didn't explain that that we couldn't have a band every once in a while. I mean, you hear so much of that from people that we thought knew. So we have to because the devil's not, he's going after us. He's already got the rest of the world. He is going after us constantly. So we have got to pick this Bible up and know the truth in here. So any comments? Please, y'all just come on out and say anything. I don't want to be up here babbling and think, and then sit down and go, I don't even know what I just said.
That little poem, that says, teach me the truth, Lord, though my heart may break. There's a lot of people, like in my life, that, they're not Christians, you know what I mean? And when my faith started growing, it's hard to let those things go, your heart breaks, but just, if you have your eye on the Lord, and His will for you, it just, He weeds them out real quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Truth will hurt,
Yeah.
doesn't it? I remember Mom pulling our hair and getting ready for on Saturday night, getting ready for services on Sunday morning, and putting those curlers in there. She goes, being beautiful, it hurts. I remember that like it was yesterday. But to be beautiful to God, it's going to hurt sometimes, because that means that we have to change. We have to do what this says. Not that we wouldn't mean to, but if somebody comes up and corrects us, say, Anita, do you think that sounded good? And that would just hurt my heart, knowing that I hurt somebody else, or, so sometimes it hurts. Or I think you're looking at that scripture wrong. Let's look at that together. And then, that kind of stuff kind of takes us back, or it should, and then correct it. But, that's why the truth sometimes does hurt. But if we're willing to change, and then we know that at one time we were there where your friends were. So we're patient to just do what we can and teach them and show by example is the biggest thing too. So, anybody else? All right. Ronnie, would you, on the top of 63, would you do the next paragraph there?
Okay. Now, somebody gonna read the verses or not? Or just read
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Jan, would you have John 13:35? Okay. And Amy, would you do Matthew 5:44? In fact, Jan, go ahead and read that before Ronnie reads it first.
By this, all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another.
Okay. And Amy, if you have Matthew 5:44, let's just go ahead and read that too.
But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you.
Okay, well, Ronnie, read that, and since we've read these verses, that maybe will help.
Okay. Thus we see love for our fellow man. Love of the brotherhood is one test of discipleship, John 13:35. One superiority of Christianity over all other religions is the teaching to love even our enemies, Matthew 5:44. A little girl once asked, but if you love someone, how could he be your enemy? The word love does not always mean like it means to seek one's good. We may not like the actions of an enemy, but we can still sincerely desire and seek that one's good and be willing to return good for evil at every opportunity.
The word love means what?
Seek one's good.
Yeah, wanting the best for another. And if we love someone's soul, we don't like them. Maybe they've hurt us before, but if we love their soul, then we want the best for them. And that's how we lead them to Jesus. Okay? Anybody else? All right. Number 5, does the Lord see sins of the heart? Let's see. Maddie, would you read just the rest of this on this page?
Does the Lord see sins of the heart? The greatest spiritual values are invisible, and the most grievous sins are sins of the heart. The Lord may look upon a person who attends church regularly and does many good works, and yet see a heart stained with sin not visible to men. If so, that soul is unprepared for the judgment day. Selfishness is the basis of so many other sins. We must learn to deny self if we want to go to heaven. Matthew 16:24. Selfishness is a characteristic of the wicked. 2 Timothy 3:2. It is exhibited in seeking one's own interest and pleasure above all else, and is forbidden for saints. 1 Corinthians 10:24, Philippians 2:4. Hatred dwells in evil hearts. It is a work of the flesh. Galatians 5:20. Is actually murder in the sight of God. 1 Corinthians 3:15. And is positive proof that one does not love God. 1 John 4:20. Hatred dwarfs the soul, destroys spirituality, and makes life miserable. One who loves or lives in malice and envy, hateful and hating one another, is foolish, disobedient, and deceived. Titus 3:3.
Okay, well, let's go back and read a couple of these verses. Let's see. JD, would you read Matthew 16:24? And Eugene, are you up to reading? Okay. Oh, Christy, do what? First Corinthians 10:24. Matthew 16:24.
Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me.
Which again is what we've been talking about in Eric's class about selfishness. We have to deny ourselves to be able to give ourselves to God. We can't, it's not a double thing. It's not, where's the verse where it says you can't give to God and to the devil at the same time? It's you've got to give yourself, all of it, not just part of it. And then, let's see, did I give 1 Corinthians 10:24? Okay.
Let no one seek his own good, but that of his neighbor.
Okay. And that's part of our love towards our neighbor. Okay. Hatred. You know, it's like the same thing you hear preachers like, preach on the same thing. And they say, well, you know, we've already heard this, until you learn it, I'm going to keep preaching it. Well, how many times have we been listening to kindness? But look at this world. This world is ugly to each other. There's murders every single day. There are hatred, things that you see pictures of, you know, that people putting stuff on walls and their doors. I mean, it is just everywhere. And so the only thing that we do is we try to teach kindness, and try to teach against hatred. And so, you know, until somebody listens, and this is going to be just an everyday thing for the rest of our lives, is that we have to show the world what kindness is. We have to show them what our love is. We have to show them that we are not selfish, that Christ is us, that we live in Christ. These are the kind of things that, this is how God is going to look at us, is how what we show to the world. Let's see. Hatred dwarfs the souls, destroys spirituality, and makes life miserable. It does. How many feels really good when you get really mad at somebody? None of us do. If we're really upset with somebody, it just burns a hole, whether that person deserved it or not. But when you get so mad at somebody, you just feel your temperature rising, you know. So those are the things that we have to learn on how to deal with that and put kindness to that person and try, it's an everyday thing, I'm afraid. Any comments on that?
I think even if you, like, I feel like holding grudges kind of goes with that too, because I know with me, if there's like somebody who's like wronged me, in the past, it's something that I struggle with, being like, okay, I don't hate that person, but like, I'm still not okay with what they've done. Okay, like, you gotta let it go at some point,
Yeah.
because I feel like holding on to that takes so much more effort and energy out of you than just like, moving on. Like, what's the point? It's not gonna change, like, it's not gonna get, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and you'd be surprised, I bet and I'm not gonna ask everybody to hold their hand up, but how many people have to deal with that daily? Well, I'm 64 years old and I'm still 64 and a half. 64 and 3/4 actually. But Betty will be 65 before me. I'll just
Well,
But that is something I still deal with. When people have wronged me, it hurts. And to turn it around, instead of having hatred for that person, we have kindness and we have love. Okay?
well, I remember this as a child growing up. My mom always said, you get more friends with honey than you do vinegar.
Yes.
So I just try. There's good in everybody on this earth. It's just really hard sometimes to find.
And we always, some people always have a story
Right.
that, they were having a bad day. And I can say this lovingly, but I have examples of my father-in-law being in the hospital, and I have examples of my father being in the hospital. And if you knew either one of them, you could probably guess who got more loving and tender care in the hospital than the other one, and that was my dad. He loved everybody, he joked around with everybody, he thanked everybody. He might have been hurting, it might have been a tough day. Then there was the other side. I just won't even go into that, but it wasn't the same. So there you go.
Right.
With loving kindness. You maybe didn't like that nurse coming in after him with that needle, but that nurse might have been really pretty rude, but he was going to be nice
But
to
if
her.
he'd have said something kind to her, and kindness is infectious.
Yes, it is.
And if everybody can say something kind to someone else,
Yes. You don't have to
then
worry.
they'll say something kind.
It spreads, and
Yeah. Thank
I
goodness.
quoted Eugene to my grandkids a while ago when they came from school. They're kind of fighting, and I said, they used a harsh tone of voice. I said, do you know what Miss Eugene used to make JD say all the time? Be kind one to another. Can y'all say that?
Be kind.
Ephesians 4:32.
they were probably just more impressed at JD. There you go. But that's so true. I mean, it starts as little kids, and that's where you see adults acting like little kids. Katrina now sees it every day. She sees it every day.
The adults acting like little kids.
Yeah. Exactly.
The kids these
I've
days,
been there.
the kids these days are better than their parents.
Unfortunately, the parents are ripping off on the kids.
Yeah.
I'm afraid, so. All right, well, let's go to the next.
In Galatians, it talks about the works of the flesh, and one of them is outburst of, what's it say, of wrath. When we get angry, that's the first thing we're gonna do, is say something and then probably what we're trying to say.
Bring it back. Bring it back. Yeah, exactly. All right, I'm just gonna ask, who did I stop with over here? Okay,
You stop with me.
did you want to read? You don't want to read?
I'll read. I'll be
Oh,
fast,
okay.
I can see it.
Okay.
Envy is one of the most prevalent sins of the heart, yet many Christians are unaware of their own guilt. What is envy? It is a feeling of pain or unhappiness over the success or good fortunes of others. One does not have to desire or covet what another has to be guilty of envy. If we feel upset and unhappy over anyone's good fortune or accomplishments, that is envy. It is a characteristic of the wicked.
Galatians 5:21 and Romans 1:29, and not only affects the soul, but bring constant vexation and grief to this life. Someone has said, nothing can make you bluer than being green with envy. God said it is the rottenness of the bones and spiritual cancer. Proverbs 14:30. No. Also some ancient proverbs, envy keeps no holiday. In seeing another's well, it is not good to have the eyes smart. Envy is a raging fever and has no rest. For our own happiness as well as our spiritual welfare, we must learn to rejoice with them that rejoice, sincerely and from the heart.
Envy. There again, we've all been sometimes kind of jealous, some kind of envious. It's when it goes past that where it comes into anger. It comes into, I wish they didn't have that. You know, and it could be little things. It could be big things. I mean, it can swell up in us at any time that we look to somebody else thinking, sure wish I had that. Sure wish I could go there. I mean, we can think that, but does that turn into this swelling in our heart that we just don't want them to have it? I want to go, and then they've been on plenty of trips. I want to go on that one, that type of thing. So, any comments? I can look at Eugene, and I can look at Amy, and I can look at them thinking, man, I wish my husband was here, that we could do something as a couple, But they're not going to say, man, I wish you didn't have your husband so that you would feel like I did. That's not the way it is. They've dealt with that, but it's that part of that loving and kindness for others and what they have and what they do. That is part of our Christian makeup. And we have to make sure that what we do is supporting other people, supporting what they do, and rejoice with those who rejoice. Anything else? Just come on in if you need to. All right, ingratitude. So, JD.
Ingratitude is another respectable sin committed by so many, not realizing its seriousness. Being unthankful is wicked. 2 Timothy 3:2.
You want to read that real quick, JD?
Yeah. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy. No, I did 2, 3. Okay, I'm so sorry.
I was trying to work that into that. I was going, okay, yeah. Second Timothy 3:2. Being unthankful is wicked. Does that say something like that?
Yes, it is.
We'll just all go over there.
Let's do it together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Read it. Do you want to read it?
You read it.
Okay, I'll read it.
Okay.
That's what I had. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy.
Okay. Ungrateful would be the key word there. Yeah. That's good. That's kind of the reason I'm not reading every single, because it usually has like one little thing in there. Don't tell Rita. Nobody needs to tell Rita that I messed up.
Gratitude comes not from big bank accounts, but from big hearts. We understand that in the animal world, a badger will dig room for a fox to share his hole. Later the fox will thrust the badger out of his own home and keep it for himself. What cruel ingratitude. But how much more pardonable is the same attitude in mankind? Swinish gluttony ne'er looks to heaven amidst his gorgeous feasts, but with besotted face ingratitude crams and blasphemes his fear. John Milton. Giving thanks always for all things unto God and the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Ephesians 5:20. We are indebted to God for all things, every joy and blessing, both spiritual and temporal. Gratitude is a gloom chaser. When hearts are filled with thankfulness for what we have, there's no room for discontent over what we lack.
So what does that mean? Katrina, what is the sentence, gratitude is a gloom chaser? What would you think that would mean?
Well, when we are focusing our minds on the good things and what to be thankful for, then we don't have the mental capacity to throw a pity party.
Because there's a lot to be thankful for, isn't there? There's just, when you start writing all of this stuff down, and then you just don't realize it just keeps coming and coming, and you're on the second page, the third page. I mean, we just have to have that mindset to be thankful for all of that.
It's interesting because last year my New Year's resolution was to write at least one thing every day that I was thankful for, no matter how hard the day was. And I did not know that at the time I made that resolution that it would be like literally the hardest year of my life.
Yeah.
And yet it was perfect because it made me, on the hardest days, find something to be thankful for. And that in and of itself was such a lesson, that even in the hardest times, God is still good, and there is still something to be thankful for.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, I know one of the questions next week is about this, so I won't continue, but that's what it asks. What are some of the things, if you do physical blessings, you can just keep on going. And that doesn't even include God's mercy and His grace and His forgiveness and the church and everything involved in the church. You people, you ladies in my life, that's how grateful I am with just this. So it just keeps on going. And and then when we're having a bad day, and we've all had one, this morning was just one. And then yesterday, it was the same thing. I went in there, thought I was going to get my driver's license, and I couldn't figure out how to do it online, and so I just went in there and I dumped my whole purse while I was trying to hold it and do their kiosk. So I had all of this, and then I picked it up, and then my billfold dumped after I picked it up, and all the change went over there. And of course, there's all these people standing there, and I just looked up, I said, "It's been like this all day." I said, "Starting with the water here." And this guy just started laughing. I bet that's when it piles up like that. That's when you just can't seem to get out of it. Right, Catherine? I mean, she knows, Mandy knows, Karen knows, Joy knows, Amy, Brenda. Brenda has probably just as much right to be frustrated sometimes when she's trying to get things done and deals with the things in her life. It just seems like it just gets over and just overwhelms us. But we've got to look and see what we're suffering for. And I know you all feel the same way, so I'm not.
I just want to say something. I got up to school today, and I've been in a lot of pain, and I had strict instructions to go home and take a nap, so I did.
I wonder who that was from.
So, when I got up, I feel like $1 million. Yeah, my mouth was woke up, and she's just like, "Well, maybe I think like she acted like my arms being twisted to come, and I said, I wanna go.
Yeah, she did.
Like, I think you could be a pastor, I probably could, but, I enjoy going.
Well, it's easy to make an excuse.
Yeah,
Exactly. You could say, I'm in pain, I'll say, oh, and I'll be there tomorrow.
I'm not near as pain as I was when I had the tooth.
There you go.
So,
Well, I remember years ago, Jenny Howard, love her to death, she's right there so I can say that. When Roland was going through a lot of his problems, and I remember Jenny said, I just got on my hands and knees and I prayed to God, He is yours. And I think right after that, he turned around and was able to start getting himself better. But if we think it's just all bad and I just can't take this anymore, and we pray. We pray to God for the help that we can't do. There's so much that we feel like, I think as women, that we need to take care of, we're just kind of that way. And, when we finally say, God, it's yours, I can't do this anymore. And so that helps too when we're talking to, I don't even know what, ingratitude, yeah. So which one have we just, I've been sitting here talking all the time.
It describes not being thankful as unrighteousness.
Yes.
Nor were they thankful. And that's in the paragraph talking about the wrath of God on the unrighteous.
Yes.
So it's not just something, oh, well, we're not grateful. No, it's unrighteous.
Yes.
To not be grateful.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a good point.
Anita,
Yes.
when I was so sick with COVID and I was in ICU, the respiratory guy would come in about 6 times a day. And some of the times I would be teary because I was alone and I was afraid and I was sick. And he would always come in upbeat, and he kept saying to me, oh girl, this is just a bump in the road. This is just a bump in the road. And that's something I'll remember the rest of my life. If it's a bad day and I can't breathe that day, or if I don't feel good or whatever, I just keep telling myself it's a bump in the road.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it. It's a bump. All right. Well, let's. When do they do the little bell? What time?
Probably 5 more minutes.
Okay.
Something like that.
I don't think we're going to finish, but we can keep
2 or 3.
Okay. Let's see. Brenda, would you start with stubbornness?
Stubbornness is actually a refusal to recognize any authority but one's own will. Against God, it is hardening the heart and refusing to hear and obey Him. Against man, it is a self-willed determination to get one's own way at any cost. It was so serious in God's sight that under the law of Moses, a stubborn and rebellious child was subject to death. Deuteronomy 21, 18, 19. Being self-willed is sinful, 2 Peter 2:10, and disqualifies a man from the eldership in the large church, Titus 1:6-9.
And I know we all know people or children that says a refusal to recognize any authority but one's own will. So I think that pretty much speaks for itself for stubbornness.
I'd straighten some of them up if they knew they were subject to death, huh?
Yeah, when I read that, I thought, I wonder how many kids would be gone, after that. But we are glad that, well, she's laughing because she's thinking half my class might be gone. Oh, goodness. Okay. Let's see. Christy, could you do the next 3?
Sins of the tongue are actually sins of the heart, for out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. Matthew 12:34. This is discussed more fully in chapters 9 and 10. Laziness and idleness are not afflictions of the body, but of the heart. Christians are to be diligent, not slothful. Hebrews 6:11 and 12. This is essential for happiness, and the person who violates this command is not even worthy of the food he eats. 2 Thessalonians 3:11. The slothful person becomes guilty of sins of omission, and idleness also leads to other sins. 1 Timothy 5:13.
And you know, one thing about this, idleness in the church, that will show if somebody comes and visits our congregation and sees a bunch of lazy people that are sitting around that can't make it to go tell them hi, can't send them a card, can't say hi, just kind of smile and walk by, that will hurt the church also. And that's what she's talking about. How do we look to God? But we can also put that in at a West. We don't have to worry about that. But I know we probably have been in congregations like that. You know, that they just weren't noticed. I remember Amanda and Justin have just now started going to another congregation. She said, Mom, she said, it's such a difference from where we were going, because people actually coming up and saying that they're glad that we're here. And they're smiling, and there's service, and they get up and they sing with their hearts, not because they have to. I mean, she can see that because she's needed that, you know, and so when she goes somewhere that doesn't put any effort in it, is kind of lazy, that's what she was getting out of it. So, you know, so we have to be really careful with the church also, with how we do it. But we're not perfect, but we're close. All right. Dishonesty.
Dishonesty is a sin of the heart which manifests itself in many ways. By the tongue, Proverbs 19:9, in business dealings, Leviticus 6:2-5, by handling the word of God deceitfully, 2 Corinthians 4:14. Being fair with others is one form of honesty. So many people have two standards, one for themselves and another for everyone else. The best cure for this is to visualize ourselves in the other person's place and practice the golden rule. Being fair with God is another form of honesty. One who serves God from impure motives is unfair to himself and to God. Matthew 6:1-2.
Okay. You know what? You might as well finish that. That's just going to finish the dishonesty.
Children at play often say to each other, "You're not playing fair." God is the author of fairness and has promised to play fair with us if we will do likewise. If we draw nigh to him, he will draw nigh to us. James 4:8. If we give to him, he will give to us. Malachi 3:10. If we refuse to hear him, he will refuse to hear us. Proverbs 28:9. If we confess Christ, he will confess us. Matthew 10:32.
And isn't that what we pray for one of our blessings? Is that God is just, that God is not going to, that God is not going to see a sinner, see someone that, and not let, you know, just not correct him, not judge him, that everybody can go to heaven, doesn't matter, kind of like a lot of the world feels. You know, so we're glad that that is one of our blessings, that God is just and God will take care of that.
That's one of the biggest advertisements for a church, is that, like it said in business, if somebody says, well, yeah, they claim to be a Christian, but they're the worst business person I've ever seen, or they'll cheat you, or whatever, or the opposite, they're the same all the time.
Yeah.
What they say is the way it will always be.
And you know it.
And you know it.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Well, I don't know.
Are we gonna stop?
Does this need to stop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought they'd get to the door and wave or something like that.
I think it's fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, we will be on almost, and I think next week it will be the last week that we have class. So maybe she can hurry and get through it. So anyway, thank you for your comments. Thanks for doing all of this. I appreciate it, and
Thank you.
hopefully,
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you,
Anita.
Anita.
well, tell
Right.
me that it was a great job, but you really love her. You don't want her to do this again.
You want us to tell her you really did bad, so she won't push it off on you?
Well, you know, she didn't ask. It's like, eulogy's bringing you this. And I'm gonna. Oh, that is so exciting. I'm gonna circle her, this one right
So she pulled the lip, she pulled the door so she can see.
Check those patterns. Yeah.